It's got nothing to do with gear. Of course, gear will aid you, which means that if you know that you want to compress a background, if you're taking a telephoto and so on and so forth, the choice of lens will make you more empowered to shoot the vision that you have. But if you don't have that vision to begin with, then no amount of camera gear is going to help you with anything.
Welcome to episode 55 of Photo Country, the podcast where we explore the art, craft, and adventure of photography. I am your host Rajeev Nedumaran, and today we are chasing light and adventure with Vivek Chugh. VC to his friends, Vivek and I crossed paths in Goa, where both of us used to work together in the same company. VC loves his bike and his camera. His journeys have taken him from the desolate landscapes of Rajasthan to the remote corners of Scotland. In this episode, we dive into his extensive experience in photography, discuss his philosophy on gear and art, and even touch upon his foray into filmmaking. Whether you're an aspiring photographer or a seasoned pro, get ready to be inspired by Vivek's insights and stories. Let's jump right in. Hey Vivek, thanks for accepting this invite.
Hi, Rajiv.
And great to meet you again on Photo Country. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
So, I have a story to sort of begin this podcast. And the first time I picked up a camera was in Goa when we were both working together. And I distinctly remember the first person I asked is, how the hell do you work this damn thing?
Too many
And
buttons.
I asked, I don't know if you remember this. I remember it very clearly.
I don't remember that.
It's all about bringing the exposure to zero. There's no other magic to it. That's all you need to figure. And that's stuck in my brain because people complicate the whole thing about photography. Like it's almost become this overly complicated technical thing, and it's all about the camera, Sony, this, that, and AI and all that BS. People forget that first of all, it's an art, and people have been doing it for like hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And people are doing, but there was no electronics on it, the damn thing, right? So when you said it's all about bringing it down to zero, so it's so simple, and boom, that's the first thing I remember. And still, I keep it in mind. That's what I remember when I go to take a photograph.
Yeah, I think it's just these three settings, right? It's aperture, it's shutter speed, and ISO. These three settings, you do your own permutation combination to get the desired result, and your exposure needs to be exactly what you want it to be. Now, there are certain cases where you will underexpose or overexpose, but effectively you need to know what you're doing with the image. And you're right, it's a lot of BS. It's a lot of BS, I think, for the first 5 years of doing photography itself. I always thought it's about the camera, or if I had a better lens, I could do this. And of course, that whole thinking changes because eventually it's how you see something. If you can see the image in your head, then you can go and create it. If you don't see the image, then it's pretty much a hit or a miss, right? So you can't go into the world and say, okay, if I find something beautiful, it's great to have a camera. But knowing whether this is beautiful for you or not, that's more important in that sense.
Yeah.
You're right. It's much more of an art form. It's got nothing to do with gear. Of course, gear will aid you, which means that if you know that you want to compress a background, if you're taking a telephoto and so on and so forth, the choice of lens will make you more empowered to shoot the vision that you have. But if you don't have that vision to begin with, then no amount of camera gear is going to help you with anything, right? So, and that the whole point of that, the art form itself is that the whole vision for the photograph will build over a period of years, right? By the time you have that sense that, okay, this is what I really want to shoot, that's something that you will develop over a period of years. So yeah, it's quite, I can't understand why people get taken with the whole camera gear bullshit in the beginning. And I think both of us have also been there. But yeah, I'm saying after a point, you just want to simplify. You want something that's smaller. You want something that's more portable. You just want something that you want to carry. Those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually don't believe in buying new cameras. First of all, I'd rather have somebody else take the hit than me.
So the camera that I'm using now is the camera that I bought in 2014, which is the Canon 6D, and it's still with me. And there are certain parts of my body that's fallen off, chipped and broken and fallen off, but it still is going pretty strong if that's it.
Yeah, so my first camera was, I think, Pentax manufactured, like, produced only one mirrorless camera,
Hmm.
and I got that
Hmm.
for $200. Yeah, that was my first camera,
Hmm.
and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I gave it away, and then I got a Sony A7 Mark One, like
Hmm.
first generation Mark. Till recently, I'm still using it, and
Hmm.
it works. It's beautiful. It's cosmetically, it's peeling away and stuff like that, but it's amazing.
See, I definitely get the appeal, which means that if you want a new camera, so for instance, I've been toying with trying to upgrade my camera now. And my basic consideration for the kind of things that I shoot, which is that I will shoot the occasional portrait photograph. I will shoot, but I'm saying it's going to be mainly landscapes. So my consideration is that I would like something that's a full frame at the very least. So the first thing is that let's go and look at all the cheap full frames that I have. Second is that I've got some lenses from Canon, so I'm locked into the Canon ecosystem. So it's going to be a Canon. Third is that if I do want autofocus, and there have been some improvements, and this is where the appeal comes in, right? So if you look at some of the newer Canon mirrorless systems like the R8 or the R10 or the R6s and so on and so forth, they are in the cheap full frame cameras. The R10 is not, but the R8 is and the R6s is. But they come with an outstanding autofocus function. Outstanding. So if you're shooting moving objects, then I see the appeal there to spend that money and upgrade. But if I was shooting landscapes, then I still don't think it's worth that added money only for the autofocus.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because except for one lens,
Mm,
all my lenses are manual lenses. I don't have any lenses with electronics on them.
mm,
One is my Lens Baby
mm,
85
mm,
and my Samyang 135.
mm.
Apart from that, all of them are vintage lenses. In fact, Canon FD lenses. I got it like $50, $100 on eBay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vivitar lenses. So I have a bunch of, because they're so cheap. I don't mind buying a bunch of them.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, and I love using vintage lenses because I think there is a character to them.
Mm,
When you put it on a mirrorless, you have that. Especially, I have one lens, which is the Helios 44-2. In fact, Dune was shot on that lens.
but what does the vintage lens do?
Like Helios, it's because of the blades, the number of blades, and the way
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
configured. The bokeh that you get, it's swirly,
Ah,
and then
got it.
it's soft on the edges and sharp in the center,
Sure.
and it's very soft. So it gives a very, like, cinematic fine art
Sure.
output to it.
Yeah.
That's the appeal for me. I don't mind capturing, I mean, some imperfection in it. I'm not perfect, so why do I need my lenses to be perfect?
I go on the other extreme. I try to get a lot of perfection, not necessarily edge to edge sharp, but I'm saying that about
Mm,
90-95% of the image should be sharp. That you should be able to see the foreground and the background that's fairly sharp. So there, I tend to err on the other side, which means that I'm aiming
right,
for something that is very technically sound at the same time beautiful.
right, right,
So
right.
it needs to have that moment, and the same time, it also needs to be technically perfect. So I tend to aim to that, right? But that's just me. It's not necessarily every photographer's dream.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why it's an art, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not a very objective thing. You're not like trying to solve an equation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I like intentional camera movement, like motion blur, or in fact like long exposure,
Mm,
and keep
sure.
trying new things.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like vintage lenses, because I can get many lenses but very cheap. So I can keep experimenting with different focal
Yeah.
lenses. I don't need to invest in a expensive lens
Sure.
because I'm not going to use it day to day.
Yeah. And thing is, you won't make much revenue from it if you're not doing it professionally. So it's always a question of should you invest in something? I
Yeah.
come up from a completely different point of view is that I'm investing in photography because I've got what is it? I've got a Canon 6D, I've got a 7200 f2.8 lens, I've got a Canon 50mm 1.4 lens, and I've got a 1740 lens. So effectively, my needs are from let's say 17 to 200, which is all covered. In case I need a tele lens that's even more than that, I'll just borrow somebody's lens or I'll rent it out and so on and so forth. But I also come from the point of view that I'm not necessarily investing in it to make a return on it. The return
Right.
for me is that if I go on a trip and if I really enjoy the moment, that's return enough for me. So, in
Absolutely.
terms of think of it as you spending money to enjoy a hobby that you have.
Absolutely.
And that's absolutely okay with me because there are other things that I do that earn me money. So I could spend that money over here and then use this to give me real joy and pleasure in that sense. So that's the way I look at it really. Unless it's the only thing that I'm doing, then yes, then I'll be very stringent with my, very frugal, so to speak, with the choices of equipment that I buy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But how did you get into photography? Like, what was the spark?
I don't know, yeah. I don't really quite remember what was the spark. I think, if I'm not wrong, if I were to jog my memory, so I was working in my first company in 2006. It was an advertising agency. And oh, yeah, now I remember. So there was a friend of mine who was a hobbyist, and he used to take these very, very beautiful landscape shots of Kerala and so on and so forth. And we used to go on office trips together and generally trips. And he used to bring out his camera. And I really liked the images that he took. So I then decided to go for like a 4-day course in photography. I had to borrow some uncle's camera. In fact, it wasn't an uncle, it was my then girlfriend's dad's camera. It was a film F100, if I recall correctly. I think it was an F100 Nikon film camera. And that's where it started. And then we did the course. And then my brother had bought a camera, which was a D80, I think, a Nikon D80. And that's where it started really. But then I happened to buy one and I used it for years and stuck with it and kept shooting pictures, shot a lot of images, a lot of bad ones. In fact, if you see the images that we shot earlier, it was so terrible, right? So terrible. And so many years later, we're almost 20 years since I started. It's so different. You can just see how the portfolio has grown over a period of time. So that's how it started. I think I was just interested and I pursued it and I liked it. And, honestly, I'm also quite an introvert. So if you look at photography itself, it's quite a solitary activity. If you're going in hunt for an image, then, or if you're going to an event, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a party, whether it's something else, if you have the camera, you don't have to talk to anybody, right? You keep
True.
yourself. See, I don't need to talk to anybody and I don't want to talk to anybody. So in some ways, the fact that it's a solitary activity, you don't have to engage with people in general. It keeps you busy, keeps you interested. I think that was, so the reason I got into it was because I liked creating these beautiful images inspired by a friend. And then the reason why I stuck to it is because I didn't want to talk to anybody. That's generally an introvert. Yeah.
So, was it always landscapes, or were you interested in like portraits as well?
I think a lot of it used to be everything. It used to be everything. So I've done everything from portraits to weddings to architecture, hotels, and landscapes. I enjoy landscapes the most because, and of course, wildlife also. There used to be a couple of trips. Wildlife takes a lot of patience, right? It takes a
Right.
lot of patience than most other forms of this one take. So it's not for me. I don't have that much patience, that much time and money because if you are going to a safari and the prices have increased a lot, right? So you're spending a lot of money to get one great image. So like
Mm.
recently I went to this national park in India called Pench, which is in the middle of India. It's in a place called Madhya Pradesh. We were there for we did about six safaris, not six, yeah, six safaris across 3 days. And we ended up spending close to a lakh plus, yeah, maybe more.
Wow.
So it's extremely expensive to do wildlife in India. It's not cheap. And of course, the patience that you need is a lot and time and so on and so forth. You have to keep going back to a place. And if you're lucky, you'll find a tiger and so on and so forth. And that was just not for me. So clearly, wildlife was out. It didn't interest me also. I was like, I think a lot of people get generally passionate about seeing wild animals like elephants and tigers. Oh, that's a tiger. Yeah, it's a big cat. What's the big deal? Who the hell cares? So it's something that did interest me. Then weddings, tried my hand at weddings. Again, a lot of people around, not my scene at all. Didn't want to be disturbed, didn't want to speak to anybody, didn't want to schmooze the crowd. So weddings was out. Then what? Then you had hotel architecture. That's something that's quite interesting. I don't mind pursuing that. But again, since I'm not doing it as a profession, it's not something that I needed to pursue. Landscape, on the other hand, was something where I stuck to primarily because I like going to beautiful places. and discovering them and climbing up a mountain, shooting this great landscape. That interested me. And I don't know why. I don't think there's a very clear answer, but just waking up early in the morning, going there on the sunset, being at the place which will give you the best moment, planning that out. For instance, my wife still tells me that I'm so glad that I go on holidays with you because I know that I'm guaranteed to be at the best places at the best time of day. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why landscape, but landscape is just that because you're out in the open. There's not much noise anywhere.
Right.
Of course, it's very different based on which country you shoot in. If you're in India, whichever landscape place you go to, there's going to be a lot of noise. But yeah, I think landscape in general kind of stuck with me. Yeah.
But you did try your hand doing it commercially, especially like filmmaking, right? Like, how did you get into that? That especially, I remember you doing stuff for restaurants and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Really pieces of work. How did you get into that? What was your segue into
Nothing. I
filmmaking?
just nothing really. I learned filmmaking on the job, right? So we were working with both of us were working at the same company at the same time. Of course, it was a bunch of different sister companies, but since we were sister organizations, since it was next door, I said, okay, let me go and jump into it. And because I had this background in photography, is when film became slightly easier because the medium is similar. It's a visual art form. The only variable is that it's moving images versus still images, right? But your same principles still apply. Composition still applies. Lighting still applies.
True.
All of those things still apply. So it was something that I could get into very quickly versus having to understand photography and filmmaking from the scratch. And then nothing, did that because I was bored, did that to learn something new, and then decided to go out on my own. Of course, it didn't work for whatever reason, but I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think much. I didn't think much about should I not. Maybe I don't know. I have no idea how it happened, but I just saw the opportunity and jumped. And I tend to get bored of the same thing I'm doing over a period of years. 4, 5 years, 6, 7 years. If I'm doing the same thing, then I get bored and then my mind starts acting up and I say, okay, let's do something else. So maybe that's what it was, which is how I got into filmmaking to begin with. And again, most filmmakers, if they get into something, you start off really bad at it, right? Yeah, you start off bad, but you realize that if you spend a good amount of time on it, then you can do something that's worthwhile. That's pretty much it. Nothing, no real story there, so to speak.
Do you still make films or is it just photography now?
No, it's just photography. It's just photography. I do some amount of podcasting on the side for motorcycling channel that I run. But that's just content. It's just basically camera on the tripod and I produce those, but no film, so to speak. I don't do that anymore because I've realized that the joy that I get from photography and creating a still image, the chase behind that, and the fact that it's a lot easier to do than doing a film because you need a whole bunch of other things. You need equipment, you need dollies, you need to find a way to make the camera move smoothly. You have a lot more, like the operations on a production unit for film are so much more than photography, right?
True.
And that itself is a barrier. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to
Mm.
produce 1 second of or 5 seconds of footage versus this, which is a still image where things are far more easier, far more manageable. Of course, it takes its own time to also produce something that's great, but I think it's far more easier and far less operational heavy that from that point of view.
Right from our days in Synapse, the presentations you used to make and stuff like that, it's still stood out for me. I think you had a knack for storytelling. Has that influenced your photography, or is it like a two-way street?
I don't know, man. I'm saying, see, I'll tell you one thing where I've not really understood. A lot of people say that photography is storytelling. Right. I don't see how that is, or at least that's a concept that I've not really wrapped my head around a lot. Okay. So I'll give you an example. So if you look at most of the photography that happens in magazines, for instance, now let's say that you're shooting, let's say it's a fashion designer and you want to showcase the bridal gowns of this fashion designer. Now I understand there might be a story because you are producing maybe about 4 or 5 or a set of 10 images that will appear in a magazine, which means that you will show footwear, you will show the apparel, you will show the gowns, you will show the veils and a whole bunch of different things that you will show. And then you will stitch together. All these images put together will give you like the story of the fashion designer. So similar with architecture, right? So if you're shooting, let's say a house that's designed by this amazing architect, for instance, and now you want to show that there's going to be one establishing shot that will show the overall elevation. Then you'll say, okay, I want to show certain spaces in the house. Then I want to show the finish. I want to show how the finish of the wood has been done, or the tiles have been done, or the walls have been finished. So I'll do a couple of close-up shots of that. Then I want to show how light is flowing into the certain spaces of the house, and I'll show some images of that. But I'm saying it is still a bunch of different images, a set of 10, 12 images that when you put together, you get the overall story.
There is a narrative to it.
Yeah. So that is one part of storytelling. The other part of storytelling is on the journalism side of photography. Right. On the
Right.
journalism
Right.
side of photography, if you want to create a scene that says that, let's assume that I want to show how big this riot is on the streets of somewhere, for instance, or I want to show how people are pained by this one incident, then you can generally go and shoot one image that will tell you that story. So if you have a bunch of people who are crying there, and then you have this fire somewhere else, and and then you have police and you have smoke gas, and it gives you a picture. So I understand that sort of storytelling. But when it comes to landscape, I don't fully understand storytelling in terms of landscape, because effectively you're just going out there and shooting this beautiful sight. I don't know what's the story there in one single image. So I think the use of storytelling in photography is unnecessarily overused. I don't see that much of a relevance of storytelling when it comes to images per se. Of course, you can choose and say that offer if the magazine spread is has space only for 6 images, which are the 6 that I will show. That you can say is storytelling, but otherwise I've not really understood storytelling. What's your view
I
of
think
storytelling in
so.
photography?
So recently, I created a photo book
Oh,
of the trip that I took to India and the images that I captured.
sure.
So I put together a narrative from start to finish,
Hmm.
and I told the story of my travels using those images to stitch it together.
Sure. But I'm
Right?
saying it is still a narrative, which means that first this happened, then this happened. You're still telling
Correct.
them it's not one photograph and one story.
Of course, when you're talking about street photography or photojournalism,
Hmm.
then possibly that one image is telling a story. For example, I think it was Robert Capa, Robert Frank, I forgot. There's this photograph of a dying soldier in
Hmm.
the Spanish Civil War, and in the act of the bullet striking him, it is like dying. So it captures that moment in time.
Sure.
And it
It's a moment in time.
tells
It's a
that
moment in time. Yeah.
if you're shooting a landscape, then it's a piece of art. Like it's beautiful. It's maybe it gives a sense of emotion. For example, those photographs that you took of the sand dunes in Rajasthan, it gives you a sense of isolation or desolation, that
Hmm.
space,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rawness of nature.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the story you're trying to tell.
But I was not trying to tell a story. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm taking on, right?
Hmm.
You may not be.
Sure. I said, okay, I like the way these lights match. I like the way this light falls away. Let me just shoot.
Exactly. You're capturing it from your perspective, but I'm looking at it, then I'm getting something out of it, right? That's always it's always about art. Like
Yeah.
it's very subjective, right?
Hmm.
What you take out of it is completely different from what I take out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Trip was actually the reason I planned that Rajasthan trip was because I wanted to ride my motorcycle for a long distance. So I said, okay, where can I go? My wife was planning a trip to the UK for about 3 weeks or so. And I said that I'm not sitting in Bangalore alone and I want to go somewhere on my motorcycle. So I said, which would be the best place to take some nice photographs? And I said, hey, Rajasthan, I've not been to Rajasthan before. Let me go and take some images of the sand dunes. So I got my bike from Bangalore, rode about 2,200 kilometers to Rajasthan, put the camera on the tail bag and said, okay, let's go. And then I spent a good 10 days there and came back with a whole bunch of images. But that was the point. The point for me was, even if I came back with one photograph that was nice, that would be it. Because the point was really to go and enjoy yourself with two of the best hobbies that I have. And it was a beautiful experience in that sense. And I think that I chase those experiences more than the outcome of what the photograph is going to be.
Absolutely. You're not the first person that's shared this. There's
Mm,
this photographer called Paul Kettle. He's a wildlife and landscape photographer based in
mm,
Auckland. The images that he creates are just mind blowing,
mm.
and he says it's the thrill of the hunt,
Yeah.
rather than the outcome itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't get an image, but it doesn't matter. I just go there for that experience. Right?
Yeah. And of course, get that image, then it's very satisfying, even more satisfying. But yeah, I think, yeah, man, it's just that, and I don't know, I think some people also say that photography is a lifestyle, right? You wake up early in the morning, You wake up at 4 in the morning to get to a spot. It's also a lot to do with that. So I think if you enjoy that lifestyle of being solitary in nature, you like waking up early, you like the outdoors, you like all of those things, then you will do that for the experience of being outdoors, not necessarily for always producing something that is mind blowing. Not even possible. I'm sure that most of the biggest photographers that you can think of, I'm sure they'll have some success ratio, right? For every time they go on a shoot, either they get something or they don't.
Because landscape, the weather is also a factor, right? Sometimes you may not get it, so you'll have to go back. Everything has to come together for you for the image to actually be captured, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, so that's the other thing. You say you practice it as a hobby. Do you think everybody should have a hobby?
Shouldn't they?
I'm just saying, many people don't have.
See, the hobby is not photography. The hobby is not necessarily that I am interested in the camera. The hobby is having to go out, see new things, experiencing new things. And the camera happens to be a distraction, or it seems to be something that can help me pursue an art form. So the hobby has always been the lifestyle part of it. Even motorcycling for me is a hobby, but it's still driven by the same principles that photography is, that I want to be outside. I want to put my body through walking some few kilometers. I want to be in the open. I want to experience a certain view. I want to be able to meet new people, have new experiences. So I think that's the hobby or the lifestyle. The photography is a by the way thing, which then says that can I now challenge myself to creating an image that is memorable, not just for me, but for others as well. I don't know. I'm saying is a hobby important for most people? I can't say. I'm not a guru in any form or the other, but I'm saying that it is certainly important for me.
Why have you not pursued it professionally? Why is it a hobby?
Because when you pursue it professionally, then there are other parts of it that will get in the way of your passion, right? A lot of professional photographers need to find a way to have a steady stream of clients. You need to be pimping yourself on social media, networking with people to basically get all of this. And those parts of photography, I don't enjoy at all. I don't enjoy that part. So that's the reason. It's as simple as that. There's no other reason, so to speak.
But has it in any way influenced your profession as a in your business? Does it have any influence or making you more creative in your work?
I think it's definitely a plus, right? It's definitely a plus in the sense that I am actually a designer now. So I do design for apps and websites and so on and so forth. There is an influence, and I used to be in advertising. So I understand a little bit of copywriting, text. So the art form of communication is primarily where you're able to mix images and film and text and words and communicate something that makes sense in a persuasive way. So I'm saying that I am of the good fortune that has had these varied experiences in my life. So it definitely helps your work because when you have a bunch of designers who don't read text, and if you are the only one reading text and understanding that if we change this word here to something else, it'll make a little bit more meaning, then that's definitely a plus, right? It's definitely a plus. And if you ask anybody for that matter, would you rather be sitting in an office and working or be out taking photographs? Then the answer is that. But you don't always get time to do that. I don't have the time to take a week off, 2 weeks off and go somewhere, shoot 4 photographs and come back. So I don't know. But it's definitely a plus, right? If you do it. And also I think photography, Rajiv, on trips, it's very difficult. I don't know about you, but I'm saying that if I'm going on a trip either with my wife or with some friends, or if it's a motorcycling trip with a bunch of people, for some reason, I tend to be the only photography enthusiast there, right? Not everybody gets into it so deep. So you can't do photography also there in the company of these people because they have an agenda. The
Correct.
agenda is to reach a certain place, go to a specific hotel, have lunch here, have dinner there. And my agenda is very different, which means I don't want any of that. I want to go to this peak. I want to go to this waterfall. I want to go to here at 4 in the morning so that I'm ready before that time. And everybody's, no, we'll drink till 2 o'clock. And it just doesn't work. So I think photography in some ways gets in the way of all these other experiences. Like recently last year, I'd gone to Leh Ladakh on a motorcycling trip, right? It was arguably some of the best landscapes in the world in that sense. And I was on a motorcycle for a good I don't know, I think about 4,500 kilometers or so.
Wow. From Bangalore.
No, we went from Chandigarh and came back to Chandigarh.
Okay.
And I flew to Chandigarh, but effectively it was maybe not 4,000. I can't remember. I can't remember the exact number, but it must have been definitely above 2,500 kilometers. And we had to stick to a specific agenda. So there were times when I would just stop in the middle of the ride, look at this and say, what a great location for the photograph. But it's still 12 o'clock at noon. Now we have no leeway to go back to the hotel, which is a good 200 kilometers away, come back for sunset, sunrise, because your schedule is planned, right? So the next time I do this trip, it's going to be in a car where I can find a way to camp in places and then do it my way. So I think photography, if you're doing it, is again coming back to point now, it's a very solitary activity.
Absolutely.
Unless you're going with a bunch of other photographers as well.
It's a solo pursuit, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless and until you're going on a photo walk with a bunch of other photographers.
And it's hard to find. Yeah. It's hard to find people who are just as passionate. It's difficult to find people.
True. Yeah. So let's look at some of the images, man. I've been looking at the first, I really loved your Rajasthan series. There's one photograph, it's called Light. It's in Ladakh, I think. It's a ray of light in the middle on the side of a mountain range. It's just absolutely spectacular. How did that happen? Like, you were just lucky that you were there, or did you plan? You wanted this image?
No, no, I was just lucky that I was there. And the clouds opened up at a certain point, and I just saw this ray of light and I just snapped. Just lucky. But also the thing is, it wasn't just luck because I got out. The thing is, we reached our hotel at about 3, 4 in the afternoon. And some of them had beer and went to sleep. And I decided to get out at 5 for a walk to see if there's any potential to shoot something. So obviously, I walked out being prepared that I'm going to take my camera with me. If I see something else, I'll snap it. And that's how it happened. So it's not like I went chasing after it, but it was there when I had the camera because I made a plan that let me go for a walk and see if opportunity presents itself.
Right, right. The other one I liked was the one in Rajasthan where the three shrubs are there in the foreground.
Yeah.
And then you have the lines forming the dune in the background, and there's in the distance there's another a couple of shrubs.
Yeah.
I think the play of light and the diagonal lines is very dynamic.
I think I've snapped a lot of images from here.
Yeah.
And of course, I went in with the other idea that funny story. Okay, so I've not been to Rajasthan before. I'd not been to the sand dunes, and there was one sand dune called, I think, Sam Sand Dunes, which is the more popular one. And there's one below that, which is less popular one. And there was a little bit of rain happening at that time when I reached the day, and I stayed there for about a good 4 or 5 days. And I would go to the sand dunes part every morning at about 5:30 in the morning, and every evening the same thing I would do at about 4:30. And because it was a lesser known sand dune of Jaisalmer, I pretty much had the whole place to myself. There was maybe 1 or 2 wedding shoots happening there, but apart from that, it was just me for miles and miles. So it was a bit scary. I'll give you that. It was a bit scary because I didn't know. And anytime a person approached me, I would feel a little scared that who is this person? Why are they coming here? But effectively, yeah, I was just looking for patterns and composition. It wasn't, again, I saw this and I shot it and nothing really otherwise. It was just, let's look for some beautiful compositions and patterns in the sand.
I think those were the standouts for me. And apart from that, did you go to Iceland? Where the waterfalls? Was it in the UK?
That was in the UK, yeah. That was in the UK.
Yeah. Is it like, did you go to the Lake District by any chance?
No, this was, I know the waterfall you're talking about. I think it's Fairy Pools, if I'm not wrong. So Fairy Pools is, so basically in Scotland, a lot of people go to Edinburgh and come back. Okay, that's barely what of Scotland, right? So if you want to see the real Scotland, then you go to some of the islands, which is further north and further west. So I had gone to this place called Isle of Skye, which is a photography paradise. The Isle of Skye is quite a distance, yeah. Glasgow, if you're going from London, so London to Glasgow or to Edinburgh is about half distance to get to Isle of Skye. And most people stop there and come back, which is the dumbest thing to do. You want to go double the distance, right? So you want to go to a Glencoe, you want to go to an Isle of Skye to see these things. And because it's so remote, the place only attracts hikers, photographers. They don't really attract a lot of tourists because there are not many party places to go to. So you'll have a lot of camper vans there. You'll have a lot of trekkers who like to climb mountains. You will have a lot of guys with cameras there. to do all of this stuff. So it was planned as a photography trip primarily.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are a lot of guides that will tell you that what are the best places you can visit in the Isle of Skye to get these shots. And in fact, it's not a great photo, if you ask me, because the weather was all wrong.
Yeah,
Oh.
the one I like is a long exposure experiment of the sea, Morjam Beach, Goa.
Okay, I got it.
Screenshot.
So you're saying these things, no? Yeah. So this is me panning the camera. Me panning the camera and just trying to get some abstract because the color was very nice, but the sea by itself was not interesting enough to shoot. I didn't have any foregrounds there or anything of that sort. But yeah, it
Mm,
was just the color. So I wanted to capture the color in some unique way. And
mm,
I'd learned somewhere on YouTube that somebody had done this. So I said, let me try and replicate it. And that's what I did. So it was an experiment. Turned out that they
mm,
don't, in fact, I printed some of these also. And
mm.
it turns out they're not very nice prints to look at. So yeah, it was just an experiment, really, more than anything else.
So, have you printed any of your
We did
images?
a lot. We did a lot
Okay.
of images. And with me, every time I think that it's worth printing, I will print it and I will hang it up. And then 1 year later, I look at it and say, okay, this is shit. Let's go chase after the next one. So yeah, it tells you a little bit more about how your standards keep changing over a period of time.
Oh, absolutely.
Like even
Absolutely.
you will know, right? So you will know this, that you just tend to become better and your taste changes or
Oh, yeah.
evolves over a period of time. And then you go
Yeah.
back 1 year back and look at these and say, this is rubbish. So,
Yeah, because like I took so many sunrises, like I got totally bored with it. So then I got into this street photography and playing around with colors and creating a look for it, having fun with that.
let me just go to I saw some of your images. Let me just scroll down, tell you some. Yeah, like some of these are really nice, right? So there is this one which is throwback to 2023 Auckland Moon Festival, another monochrome night photography shot from last year. So there's a series
Yeah.
of these. I don't know, are they street vendors that serve
Yeah,
some
so like some
food
are like
cart?
events, some are like when I'm going out with
They are
family, I
nice.
just carry the camera, and
Yeah.
you tend to go to these Indian areas with Indian food
Mm,
stalls,
mm.
and they're all really nicely decked up with neon lights.
Yeah,
And
fish and chips one is very nice because I like it because it almost seems like it's got this black frame around it and there's just light in the center of the image. It's
yeah,
quite nice.
yeah,
Yeah, very nicely done. It's a very interesting topic as well.
yeah. So that's it. That's
Oh,
what's attracting me these days.
mm,
Having people in them and some
yeah,
kind of activity
yeah,
in the evenings.
yeah,
So I don't have to wake up early in the morning.
yeah, man.
It's so damn cold in the winter.
Yeah, even this
It's
one that you've taken from the iPhone 10, which is a street
yeah,
corner of India. I like
yeah,
that as well, which has this nice PTM sound, sorry, sign.
yeah.
That's
That's
also very interesting.
outside my home.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
What next, BC? What's in your bucket list? Like, how's your photography? Where do you think it's going to go? Any plans?
I don't know. Yeah, I think as of now, I'm just taking photographs and putting up on my Instagram page. And I think it'll be that way for a while until I get some time to basically go and shoot some images deliberately and make some topic out of it. But yeah, as of now, I don't know. I was always interested to shoot something that says landscapes of India or not temples of India really, but that's a topic. But it could be landscapes of India. It could be waterfalls of India, or it could be seascapes of India, something like that. That could become a year-long project for me to do, where I would go and visit multiple beaches across India and shoot some images. That would be an interesting project, but again, takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment to get the quality that I'm looking for. Yeah, I'll put that off until I have some time to do that.
A photo book kind of a thing?
Maybe.
Hmm.
But yeah, the idea is again not to get into it in a commercial way. Maybe I'll just create a bunch of vlogs where I'm just going from place to place, shooting a video of the story behind, capturing it, scouting the location, going in,
Yeah,
getting
that'll be nice. That'll be interesting.
yeah, just that. Nothing, but again, nothing planned from a commercial point of view. It's just again to see if I could just do that. But again, it takes a lot of time, Rajiv. So nothing immediately in the cards. Maybe
Absolutely.
after I retire, then that would be a nice thing to do.
So before we close, like final question: if somebody wants to get into photography, what will you tell him or her?
I would say that practice often, just shoot, I don't know, shoot like 1,000 images a week. The more images you shoot, the better you will get at it. And then there will be times where you will realize that you're not as good as you think you are, but that phase will also pass. So don't give up too early is the advice that I will tell people. So they will get into it, but they will give up. The idea is not to give up. If you don't give up, then you will get really good at it. If you give up, then you will do what 99% of people do.
True.
It's the 1% that don't give up and make it forward. So this is the practice thing. So you shoot 1,000 images a week consistently for years, and then you will become a fantastic photographer.
Awesome. Thanks, VC. Great advice to finish off the show. Thanks for
Thank you, Rajeev.
So that's a wrap for episode 55. This episode took some time to get out and I finally did it. Thanks for sticking around, folks. I truly appreciate each and everyone who listens to this podcast. Make sure to sign up for my Substack at photocountry.substack.com, because that's where I will be sharing some of Vivek's work, and make sure to give him a follow on Instagram. I will share that in the show notes. Thanks a lot for listening. Do share your comments on Substack, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. See you in the next episode. Till then, take care and keep clicking.